Hi everyone, and welcome to the Professional Retreats virtual retreat, where today we're going to be talking about recruitment after lockdown and how we can navigate these uncertain times, whether you are furloughed, made redundant, unemployed, or looking for a career change, how you can find your perfect job, your next career change, your next career move, the next opportunity in the most challenging of markets as we navigate through lockdown, out of this crisis, and see the marketplace flooded with potential candidates. And I'm delighted to be joined today by the lovely Lee from Lee Recruitment Consultancy, who's going to be talking to us today about top tips on how to put your best foot forward with your CV, your LinkedIn profile, and what recruiters are really looking for, especially now the marketplace is due to be inundated with candidates as we face redundancies and an unemployment high coming after July once the furlough has started to be adjusted. So welcome, Ali. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
No, not at all. What's been your sort of what have you witnessed in the marketplace at the moment since, say, like March, when really this sort of hit and certain industries have been completely annihilated? What have you seen out in the recruitment space?
I mean, every sector is different, just to put that out there. I know in my sector, it has taken a massive hit.
Yeah.
I think the main points that have really sort of been evident is the way that people initially dealt with furlough. Yeah. So a lot of companies got rid of staff quickly because they were worried about how quickly the furlough scheme would come into play, and there was a period of time where some people who had job offers were having their offers retracted, so they were left in limbo, and it really demonstrated the kind of companies that are out there in terms of their values and ethics. So people, when the announcement came about the dates that you could take people back, what companies should have done was anybody who was about to leave the company could furlough that staff and take them back, and so many companies didn't. So there was a mass panic of people just completely lost through no fault of their own, going into a situation where they couldn't get the job that they'd been offered, but for whatever reason, the company wouldn't furlough them, who they were now leaving. And I think that behaviour will demonstrate how they stand as a company, and is a good question that I think, in terms of moving forward, if you are going for a job, one of the questions I would ask a company is how you dealt with the whole situation of furlough and this pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. What do you think will happen with the furlough? Obviously, it's been extended to October, but we know that after July, that weighting of financial support from the government is going to be adjusted. We don't know quite how much to yet, and employers are going to potentially top up, or therefore in July make that decision to make people redundant if they're not going to continue the furlough with them because they're not going to top up the wages. That could be the starting point of mass redundancies across sectors, where they just can't afford to keep them on the furlough anymore. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree, and I think that being realistic, this was to buy companies and businesses time, through no fault of their own, through no fault of anybody's. The situation is going to be that redundancies are going to have to be made because companies may not be able to afford the top up, or I do see many redundancies happening in that period.
Even like those that you said had been made redundant and then got taken back into the business because of the furlough financial support, those are likely to still be made redundant, aren't they? Just because they're furloughed, there's no security for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is why it's so important in this period of time. You might be lucky and your job might be there at the end of furlough. It might not be. Nobody can tell you that. Nobody can give you that answer. So the only way you can control this situation is ensure that you're in the best place possible, that should the worst happen, you are ready to hit the market.
No, 100%. And that's what we've been talking about recently between the two of us is about putting your best foot forward, and those that are spending their furlough watching Netflix and relaxing and doing what they need to do, you know, just make sure that you've got all this in place, you know, and you're spending this time wisely. You know, online courses, professional courses, personal development, professional development, reading, podcasts, keeping in touch with the industry, making connections, expanding your network, opening up your, you know, LinkedIn profiles, refreshing them, things like that. You know, there's so much that people could be doing during this time to really make furlough a time to shine, and a time that really, you know, is productive. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think everybody faces different challenges. I'm not expecting everyone to go out and smash all the, you know, volunteering and all these people who do amazing things. Maybe some people can just get through it, and I totally understand that. But if you just did some simple things every day, updated a little bit about your CV, or made a LinkedIn profile, just little steps each day will give you a massive result at the end of it, so that when you know the answer, you're not starting from way back then. You are, so every single day, just do something that will help you should that position happen.
Yeah, we did a webinar about personal brand, didn't we? About talking how to build up a personal brand. And that is really closely linked with this session, really, because by having a strong personal brand, which doesn't happen overnight, that takes time to nurture. By having a strong personal brand, bringing it into your professional life, it stands you in really good stead for when you do apply for a job. All of your social media content, your profile pictures, your CV, your LinkedIn profile, everything that you've been sharing, that you've been doing, and all your good news stories, it's all supporting that job application. Because, Ali, we were discussing before that as a recruiter, you don't just look at the CV, do you?
No. The CV is the first step. The rest is you go on full-on stalker mode. I will look through everything I can, and I'll keep digging and digging until I find something. So if you really don't want people to go on a full-on sort of spree on looking at your personal side, if you do actually have your LinkedIn profile up to date, that would probably prevent me from looking further. If I saw, as you pointed out last time, the testimonials, a good profile picture, explanations on you know, what job roles you've had. Also, there is a switch on LinkedIn that says looking for opportunities. So there's like a back end to your profile, so recruiters can see that you're open to opportunity without the public seeing that. So that's another good way of having that profile to help bring traffic to you for potential opportunities. Because do remember, not every job is advertised. I don't advertise many of my jobs. Some clients don't want you to advertise. So there's lots of work about that you may not even be aware of.
That's interesting. And like you said about the social media, if you know that on there, you know, you might have watched our personal brand webinar, and if you haven't, watch it after this one, because we really go into detail there about what people are actually seeing and perceiving and their first impressions of you. So if you don't want people to see your social media, your personal social media, then do make it private. And if you haven't got a LinkedIn profile, make one, because like Ali said, as soon as you know, they've opened up your CV, they're going to start wanting to know a bit more about you, and these are the places that they're going to look at to find out more about you, what type of person you are. Do you live as per what you're telling me your values are, and things like that. And how resilient have you been during this time? You know, have you been positive? Have you been sharing positive content? Been on LinkedIn, been active with the network, building your network, and actively encouraging others to do the same. So just on CVs then, what are your top tips as a recruiter? You receive loads of CVs. What's your top tips on CV writing and the look and the format and everything else to stand out from the crowd?
So CVs are a nightmare. Everyone hates writing them, but they're so, so important. So just the basics, this is a visual document. So make sure that it's formatted well. One thing that I've spoken to you about, Kat, and I've put in so many videos, is this myth, I guess, or I don't know where it's come from, about the 2-page CV.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know of any of my clients that have ever clearly said, I only want 2-page CV. It just, for somebody who's got 10, 15, 20 years experience, trying to cram that detail into 2 pages is just, you're just going to miss out on that information. Now, I'm not saying give me War and Peace, but three pages is perfectly acceptable. So look at 3 pages, and on there, you are telling the reader, you need to tell the reader where you've been and where you want to go. It's really clear that you tell your story within the CV, but make it clear and easy to read. So visually, I'll look at a CV, and that might honestly make me decide whether I actually read it or I just skim over it and dismiss it or continue to read. I've got lots of videos, and I've put one on my group about how to structure a CV. But a big thing that people miss out is the key achievements section. This is where you show businesses what you actually are capable of. So the roles and responsibilities that you do in a job, how have they impacted that business? What has the result been? Have you brought in another revenue stream into business? Have you produced a system that's made the business more efficient? Have you helped mentor people? All these things are achievements that are more than just roles and responsibilities, need to be on your CV. There's so much I can talk about, but just some examples.
I think there's so much more you can probably go into. I know that you're offering, you can do CV reviews and CV coaching with people, which we'll share the details of shortly. What do you think about people's photos or pictures on a CV?
Oh, that's a good question, because I mean, I'm not sure. I can honestly say I'm not convinced either way. I think this sounds really awful, but if you have got a nice picture and you look presentable, it does look great. But don't just put some random picture on there that's going to completely turn someone off straight away. I think it's really how you play that. If it's a professional, well-took picture, possibly, but it's really a personal preference. That.
So maybe not risk it then if they haven't had like a professional headshot taken. Maybe not risk it.
I think you've got to be careful. I think be careful with it.
It's the same with like the LinkedIn profile pictures, isn't it? And then your Facebook profile picture and everything else. If that's their first impression, if that's the only thing that's visible to the recruiter and that's all they can see, you know, you don't necessarily want a picture of you that's been cropped from a night out with your friends. You definitely don't want one of those cropped pictures. And you also don't want pictures of you like in a bikini doing shots or anything else like that. So if it's a professional headshot, maybe. But if not, leave it out. And on the LinkedIn profile picture, obviously, make sure that's an acceptable one as well. As with your other profile pictures, like we talked in the personal brand webinar, it's really the first impression that someone's going to have on you, and they're going to look at across all your platforms. So make sure that's a reflection of who you really are. So we talked about CVs, we talked about LinkedIn. What are the recruitment areas, websites and stuff do you look at to find candidates, and where can people upload their CVs and upload their information?
So how it works, if people aren't familiar with the whole recruitment process, is there are job boards. So they're the examples of Reed, Total Jobs, Monster, Indeed. They're what's known as a job board, and candidates upload their CV into those job boards, or you might apply for a job that job board is advertising. Once you do that, your CV is thrown into the database, and this is where recruiters access this database. So we can go in and cherry pick any CV of anybody that has used that particular job board. So what you have to be mindful of is firstly how you fill in that profile and upload, because again, I probably look through about 700 profiles a day. Wow. Probably more. And the initial profile of the job board will direct me on whether I will even click onto that CV or not straight away, because I know from what they're saying, from filling in that, whether I want to look at them or not. So you've got that barrier first. So this is really important that you follow each process and really spend time and commit to doing it well. Once we get that CV, and this is again something we've spoken about, is once you do sort of put yourself on the market, you've got to be aware that recruiters will be ringing you. So, and when they ring you, this is your first interview. From that moment when you pick up the phone, you are on an interview. So if you are aware that you're on the job market and you see a number that you don't recognise, make sure that you're in a position and composed to be able to then start speaking about yourself. If you're in the supermarket or you're just finishing a run or have got a load of kids around you, I would suggest you let it go to voicemail and then return the call when you're ready to speak. So you take control of that situation, because it is a massive, again, a massive negative when I've picked up the phone to somebody and they're totally unprepared. It can have such an impact, because speaking to me determines whether you move on to the next stage. So be mindful of that.
Such good advice. I think I always answer my phone to unknown numbers and to random numbers. My partner absolutely will not. And I'm always like, well, you never know who it might be. And usually it's like an automated message saying that I've been involved in an accident or something like that. But sometimes it is an interesting phone call. You just don't know who has got your number. And again, on the social media, on LinkedIn, on your CV, you've put out your information out there, like you say, on these databases. So you really must be aware and alert at all times that anybody at any time could get a hold of you. Check your junk mail. I always find as well, sometimes when I look at my emails, like something from a recruiter or somebody has maybe fallen into my junk mail that actually was potentially a really good contact or a lead onto something. So I always like to mention that about the emails and phone calls. So if it's an unknown number or if it's happened to fall into your spam, check it out anyway.
Absolutely. And I've lost my train of thought there. I was just going to say something. It is the same. It's also the lasting impression you make. So let's say I ring you up and the job role wasn't necessarily right for you. Remember that that recruiter is going to have a lot more jobs in the future. So try and build. I know it can be quite a stressful time when you've got lots of recruiters ringing you and you can get quite drained by it. But please try and remember that those impressions are lasting. Yeah. And if that role isn't right for you, or it's just not the right fit, try and build and establish a relationship with that recruiter so that they think of you for other roles, because that's something that definitely has happened to me in the past, where somebody's not been right, but I've remembered them from the conversation that we've had. So it is that. And again, with LinkedIn, if a recruiter approaches you for a particular job, you can decline the message, but once you decline the message, the recruiter then can't get back in touch with you for anything more. So it's always best to just say, thanks for thinking of me. I'm not available at this time, but please check in. Whatever, just be polite. Remember, this isn't just the here and now, this is in the future when you might want to look for an opportunity.
No, 100%. So we talked about personal brand, social media, getting your LinkedIn profile updated, asking for recommendations, your professional headshots, looking at your CV, working with someone like yourself, or asking friends and family to support in reviewing your CV, updating your skills, updating your profile. We've done that. We've uploaded it to a couple of databases. We've uploaded it. Where do people start looking for the next job? Where are the best places to start looking for their next role, their next career move?
So there's obviously the job boards available for adverts that are available on there. LinkedIn is a great tool as well. People want to help one another. So if you have built up a brand or a network of people on LinkedIn, very often people can find opportunities that are not even advertised at the moment, or make connections. So you need to be proactive as well. So think about the companies that you want to work for, or that are interested, that you look at in your environment, in your location. There's lots of opportunities going that there could be a company that is not quite ready to recruit, so hasn't engaged with a recruiter. But if the right CV came along, they they would take that that into consideration. So there's lots of proactive approach, and yeah, you use your contacts around you to help you.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's the time now where you can strengthen that network. So, you know, on LinkedIn, through various, you know, contacts that you might have worked with, colleagues, things like that, suppliers, you know, reach out. How are you? You know, how's furlough? How has this pandemic affected you? Are you and your family well? You know, reach out to people, start the conversations again, and just let them know, you know, maybe my future's uncertain. How is yours? How's business? You know, you can start talking, you know, again, reaching out to recruiters, start talking, you know, how do you think the marketplace is in my industry at the moment? Have those conversations. They're free at the end of the day, but you just don't know where they're going to lead to. And like you mentioned just then about employers that haven't necessarily advertised their jobs, it's a great opportunity to start rethinking about the type of employees that you want to work for, the type of brands that you want to work within. Because you know, yes, that might be limited a little bit now as everyone struggles somewhat with the economy, but you know, employers can employ you, but you're also part of that bargaining. So you need to make sure you're asking the right questions at interview and choosing the right company to work for that aligns with your values, a community that you want to be a part of, because there's nothing worse, right, than joining a job out of desperation and then hating it.
Oh, totally. And if you think about the impact that that has, not only on yourself, your own mental well-being and your family, but also that business. You know, if that business is committing to you to train you up, to pay your salaries, and you decide that it's not right for you now, that has a huge impact on that business. So it leads into that two-way thing. An interview, a job opportunity is a two-way process. And if you enter into an interview where you're seeing it as they get to choose me and that's final, you're never going to truly understand what they can offer you and what the two sort of expect from one another. So you do need to think about that and think about the questions that you want to know. There's so many people who I hear who say, I started this job and it's just not what I thought. You think, well, did you ask? Or did you? Because if you're not clear on the things that you want, you are going to get pushed into something you don't want. I guarantee it.
And like with the current climate, everything's been done virtually at the moment. How do you see? So, you know, I've got my CV, I've got my LinkedIn profile, I've applied for a ton of jobs, I've broadened my network, I have cleaned up all my social media, I've cleaned up, you know, my personal brand, and I'm through to a recruiter. I've had a great telephone conversation, and I'm now at interview stage, and it's remote. I'm on a Zoom, I'm on a FaceTime, I'm on a Skype. What's your top tips to prepare people in this environment? What questions should people be asking, and how should they adapt to this virtual interview process?
That's a really good question, because it's so hard, it's so difficult. Definitely practice. I always tell my candidates, practice with your friends, speaking out loud, asking, even just the technology at the moment. How many times have we got stuck and, you know, blips here and there? Make sure that you are ready for it and you've practiced speaking out loud, talking about your CV, working through your CV, and then really spending some time on things that are important to you. And that could be about you can't get a sense at this moment in time on the culture and environment of a business, because you can't physically be there. And I think that in the long run probably will cause problems with businesses and candidates. I think there will be problems down the line because of that. So what you've got to do is ask the right questions and think about what's important to you. Ask what the space is like. What things do they put in the way of supporting employees? What, you know, any kind of questions to give you a sense of that environment, because you haven't got that ability to do it right now. And visually on a presentation, you know, you need a clear background, not too many distractions, and I just think it's practice, and that's something that I work with my candidates through. So I would normally do a practice run on a Zoom chat. So
it's a good point though about the culture of a place, because so many times like we join businesses, the brands, because of the culture, because of the community, and then in times like this when you can't actually experience that firsthand, and then you're, you know, giving everything across virtually, you've got to obviously, in terms of your body language, how you come across, like you say, tone of voice, how you're projecting yourself, what you've got around you, you know, a nice quiet space ideally, hopefully not like half waist down in your pajamas and just waist up.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now.
I always like to think that people, you know, you should, you know, have a shower, put your face on, do your hair, do what you need to do, whatever, you know, makes you flick into professional mode, and then sit down at a table or a desk or whatever in a quiet space without distraction, and really give it as if you were, you know, in a professional environment, because one day you will have to go back into a professional workspace, and you know, and it's just putting your best foot forward, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah. All those things are so relevant, and it's a challenge. Don't get me wrong. This is not the way people want to recruit, and this is, I guess, why also people have taken a step back and frozen their recruitment, because my job as a recruiter is to try and limit risk. So I'm constantly looking to make sure the right person fits as two people meeting, and this increases the risk of a failure because that person can't physically go into the office. There's been times where candidates have walked into an interview and just got a sense of the environment that they didn't like, and unfortunately you can't get that at this moment in time. So you really need to think about the questions that are important, and try and get the best sense as possible, but this will be a problem.
Yeah, I think like you said at the beginning, it's about identifying what, this is the time now to reflect back on your previous role or roles, look at what you did enjoy, what you didn't enjoy, the working hours, the remote working, the working in an office, the type of business, the type of role that you were doing, you know, were you ready for your next challenge, did you, you know, what did you enjoy, what didn't you enjoy, and then offshooting from that, then it's about what you would like to do, what you wanted to do all along, or what you've upskilled yourself in during furlough. How has this broadened your skill set, developed you professionally and personally, and then so therefore what do you want to do now, or maybe looking at what you do want to do and then start learning, going on the courses and things like that to upskill yourself to get at that level, because the world really is now, you know, a different place, but you've got time to work on this and put your best foot forward. What are your top tips in terms of, you know, you've gone through interview, you've asked all of the questions, you've asked, and they've made you a job offer, but you're not 100%, but out of sheer desperation, you feel like you need to grab that opportunity, or you've taken a job out of desperation because you think it's the only job available to you at that time?
Oh, such an awkward question, because I would always say to my candidates, if it doesn't feel right, please don't do it. But that's very easy for me to sit there when I'm not living their life and I haven't got their stresses and I don't know how desperate they are. I think some people will be in that situation, and that's what concerns me. And this is why I want to say, get prepared now. Get prepared so you don't have to face that, because ultimately what will happen is you will take it. If you take it, you'll do it for a period of time and it will grind you down, and you'll either be back in this same position where you've got to start looking again, or you're going to just be really miserable if it's not right. I think our guts tell us a lot, and you know when something is right and when it's not.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you.
What would you do? I mean, that's just such a hard position.
Yeah, I mean, I feel in a bit more of a fortunate position that I don't have children. My partner is working, or able to work again, and we have saved. So we've given ourselves a bit of a buffer, and, you know, I will, you know, financially try to manage that so that I'm not out of desperation taking anything. I do think that people, you know, there are jobs out there that I would do for a period of 6 months or 12 months to get by. You know, I joked with a friend that, you know, she's the area manager at Aldi, and I said, you know, hit me up with a checkout job. It's £11.50 an hour, and you know, sometimes needs must. And I think people do need to accept that sometimes if you're in a position.
I guess you've got to be clear of your short and long-term goals, haven't you? Yeah. If you're in a position where you can find the job, the career that's right for you, I would say don't, if you have a bad feeling, don't take anything. But if you have to short-term, as you say, do stuff, then I can't criticize that.
I think it's about being resourceful right now. So if you've managed all your outgoings and you've basically minimized any exposure to risk in your finances and your bills and your mortgage and everything else like that, and then you can hold out a little bit longer to find the right job, then that's what I would do, of course. But sometimes,
I think though that there are opportunities. There's always opportunities for good people. If you show the market what you've got, there are opportunities. And I think that sometimes the media is a bit negative on all this. Don't listen to that. If you do the things that I talk about and I go through with candidates, you will find an opportunity. I absolutely guarantee it. You've just got to be disciplined with yourself.
And talking about that, we've got, I know that you're offering coaching for people to help them with the job search. So you do everything from helping them with their CVs, structure, formatting, you do group coaching, you do one-to-one coaching throughout the recruitment process to basically put their best foot forward and to really stand out from the marketplace. How can people get in touch with you and use these services that you're offering?
So this is very new, Impact by Lee Consultancy. So I have created a Facebook page where you can find the services on there. The reason why I've done this is I think that now more than ever, people really need this support and help. And as I've got so much experience in doing this and seeing the results of helping candidates from different sectors to my sector, I've done a lot of work with ex-military people, integrating them into civilian life. I just think now we need to offer a service that's not just CV writing, that is the complete guidance of the process at an affordable price where people actually can have coaching and be given the tools to be able.
Oh, you've got on mute there. So yeah, I checked out your Facebook page and saw that
technical issue. Sorry.
I checked out your Facebook page and saw that you were doing like a CV review for like $2.99, a group coaching call where you'll have a group of candidates to talk about a process of looking for the job, CVs, things like that. It was £10 to join the coaching call. You did one-to-one coaching programs and things like that. And I think that, you know, some corporates should really take you on in terms of managing a positive exit strategy from their businesses, because there's going to be mass redundancies out there. And if we can help people in any way prepare for the job market, you know, some people weren't prepared for this at all at the beginning of 2020. Some businesses weren't prepared at all for this either and don't want to do this. They don't want to let go of their best people. And this is a traumatic time for everyone. So I urge anyone and everyone to get in touch with you, Ali, or you know, with anybody who they trust, to look at their CV and start making the preparations now. And if any businesses can support their people in doing that, that would be awesome as well, because this is an uncertain time for so many people, and you know, we all need help. But I love the fact that how affordable you are, because I know some people, you know, business coaching or life coaching can be really unaffordable, and you're really.
This for me is not about, this isn't about money. You know, my business is recruitment. That's where this is something that I do. I'm very passionate about. I've always been passionate about candidates and the experience they have through this journey, because it's a very, very hard place to be in. It throws up so many emotions, and you can feel so lost and on your own, because you can apply for tens of jobs and get no feedback. You just hit a brick wall, and there's no one guiding you. No one's saying this is why that happens, and this is how we can tweak you to make sure that you are getting. I just think it's something, it's an area that is totally overlooked and could help so many people.
No, brilliant. And I think people need it now more than ever as we navigate these uncertain times. And I know that you're offering a 10% discount on all your services today with the code just there, which is RecRetreat10. So do use that code. Get in touch with Ali on her Facebook page. All of her services are listed on there. Get in touch with her by email or phone. She's so personable and approachable, and really makes sense when she talks to you about the recruitment process or your CV. And, you know, worst case scenario, you've done your CV and you've done this prep work and you looked at your personal brand and you got your job back in the end anyway. But the best case scenario is that you did all this work and then you know, obviously terribly made redundant or unemployed, but you're ready to hit the marketplace. And on day one, you're straight out there from the offset, and you're going for that next role, for your next career move, and you're making it a positive career move rather than out of a desperate career move. You're going to make it a positive one.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with that.
Fab. Well, thanks so much for joining me today, and thanks so much for your support. I know people really need this right now, so delighted that we could share that. And for everybody, you know, the Professional Retreat is here to help. We're doing lots of webinars and virtual retreats for you to join on a weekly basis. So keep an eye on the YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, and find us on LinkedIn. You can also find us at www.professionalretreat.co.uk, where we share lots of content throughout the week, and every weekend we do a different recording. So I hope you're all well. I hope you're all safe. Take care of each other, and yeah, look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. See you soon.
Thank you.